Right now, you're being robbed, not by a thief in the night, but by a system that has convinced you that your life has an hourly rate. Most people will spend the next 40 years selling their best hours to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like, using a currency that is losing value every single day. They call it career growth. I call it the most expensive mistake you will ever make. But what if I told you there's a quiet group of people who aren't smarter than you or luckier than you, who have stopped trading their life for paper? They've figured out how to turn the math of the world in their favor. If you're tired of being the fuel for someone else's machine, pay attention. Your time is literally running out. To understand how this robbery works, we have to look at two people who started with the exact same map, but ended up in two different worlds. Let's call them Elias and Julian. They both hold the same high-level degree. They both earn what society calls great money. To an outsider, they look identical. But if you look closer, only one of them is actually free. Elias is the engine. He is the definition of the grind. He wakes up at 5 a.m., fueled by caffeine and the pressure of a mounting inbox. He bills 80 hours a week because, in his mind, more hours equals more success. But here is the hidden trap. Elias has a stop-loss on his life. If he stops working, if he takes a month off, or simply decides to sleep in, the money stops instantly. He is a high-performance machine that requires constant, manual fueling. He is working for money. Then there's Julian. Julian spent his first 5 years working exactly like Elias. But Julian realized something Elias didn't. Income is a distraction. Assets are the destination. Instead of upgrading his life every time he got a raise, Julian lived like he was still a student. He took his surplus and bought a small, neglected rental property. He invested in a digital tool that automated his workflow. Today, Julian's reality is a different dimension. He spends his afternoons with his children or studying new interests. His bank account grows faster than Elias's, yet he hasn't worked a traditional hour in years. Julian didn't just find a better job. He built a wealth engine. He stopped being the fuel and started being the engineer. The question you have to ask yourself right now is, which one are you building? Because today, we aren't just talking about finances. To understand the transition Julian made, we need to dive into the biology of wealth, the secret of an $8 million janitor, and the 7 shifts you need to move from the grind to freedom. The first major shift is moving from income to assets. Most people look at a paycheck and ask, what can I buy? The investor looks at that same check and asks, what can I own that will pay me back? To truly understand how this works, let's look at a story that defies everything we are taught about success. In 2014, a man named Ronald Red passed away at the age of 92. To his neighbors, he was just a quiet man who spent 25 years as a gas station attendant and 17 years as a part-time janitor. He wore an old denim coat held together with safety pins. When he died, the world was shocked. Ronald Red had a net worth of $8 million. He didn't win a lottery. He didn't have a high-tech side hustle. He simply understood the second shift, the seed mentality. Ronald treated every dollar as a seed, while his peers ate their seeds by buying newer cars or bigger televisions. Ronald planted his. He bought quality stocks, and, most importantly, he never dug them up. He let time and compounding interest do the heavy lifting. Working for money is a linear exchange of your most finite resource, time. Making money work for you is the creation of a system that generates value independent of your physical presence. But moving from the Elias path to the Julian path isn't just about opening a bank account. It requires 7 fundamental shifts in your internal software. The third shift is valuing output over our input. You see, the market doesn't pay for hard work. It pays for value. A person who spends 100 hours digging a hole with a spoon provides less value than a person who spends 1 hour using an excavator. You must focus on building excavators, systems like digital content, AI, or automated businesses. Following that is shift number 4, respecting the lazy dollar. Society often mocks passive income as a dream for the lazy. In reality, a dollar earned while you sleep is the most hard-working dollar you own because it didn't cost you a minute of your life. Shift 5 is about leveraging other people's systems. You don't have to build a global corporation to benefit from one. When you buy a share of a great company, you are essentially hiring thousands of the world's smartest people to work for you. Then comes shift 6, decoupling ego from spending. True wealth is the things you don't see. It's the freedom to say no to a toxic environment. If you spend your investment capital just to look rich, you are voluntarily enslaving yourself back to the grind. And finally, shift 7, embracing calculated risk. The biggest risk isn't the stock market. The biggest risk is relying on a single source of income, your job, which can be taken away by a single external decision. Now, you might be wondering, why is this shift so incredibly difficult for most people? Why do 99% of people stay in the employee trap even when they know better? The answer is hidden in your brain's reward center, dopamine. When you get a paycheck or buy a new gadget, your brain receives an instant dopamine spike. This is the consumer's high. It feels like progress, but it's an illusion. Investing, on the other hand, is the ultimate form of dopamine fasting. When you take money and put it into an index fund, you don't get a shiny box in the mail. You don't get a new car smell. You might even feel a sense of loss. You are denying yourself a cheap dopamine hit today for a massive, life-changing reward 10 years from now. To succeed, you must rewire your brain to find satisfaction in the growth of the number, not the utility of the object. You have to learn to crave financial output more than social status. You aren't just managing money. You are managing your own neurochemistry. So, how do we actually start this process today? There are 4 practical steps to install this investor mentality. First, apply the tax yourself first rule. Before you pay a single bill, pay your future self. Automate a transfer of 10% of your income into an investment account. If you never see the money in your spending account, you won't miss the dopamine hit. Second, audit your consumption. Look at your last 30 days of transactions. Ask yourself, how much was fuel for my ego versus seeds for my garden? Redirect that ego spending into your education or assets. Third, build a value machine. Start a project that isn't tied to your hours. Whether it's digital content, an ebook, or a service, the goal is to prove to your brain that you can generate value without a boss handing it to you. And fourth, embrace the 5-year horizon. Stop checking the scoreboard every day. Wealth is like a giant flywheel. It's heavy and hard to move at first, but once it gains momentum, it becomes an unstoppable force. Ultimately, the difference between Elias and Julian wasn't talent or luck. It was intention. Elias worked to survive the month. Julian worked to buy back his life. The clock is ticking for both of them. One is running out of time. The other has all the time in the world. The question is, are you going to be the engine, or are you going to be the engineer who owns it? Plant your first seed today.